Hey guys, thanks so much and welcome to the Game Your Future podcast. I'm Daniel and I'm joined by a very special guest whose also name is Daniel. This is Daniel Hundycz and he is the owner of DPH Games, and he's going to help share with us a little bit about his gaming journey and just kind of the joy of video games and gaming in general, right? Tabletop as well. So Daniel, thanks so much and welcome. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about your gamer journey and about DPH Games.
Gamer journey. I'm an old man, so started back in the late 70s, early 80s with Avalon Hill stuff, Panzer Leader and those kind of things, D-Day. Um, College became Diplomacy, still one of my favorite games, even though I have no friends now. Um, if you've ever played that game, you know what I'm talking about. Uh, and we got into a Steve Jackson's role-playing game at the time. And fast forward, I was a school counselor for years, so we did a number of gamifying things there. We had for a college biology class, we'd have a crime scene every spring where we'd murder a mannequin, and they'd have to go right through it. Um, and then after I left there, um, I had a friend that I introduced to geocaching, and he went crazy with that. So it's like a high-tech treasure hunt. And his kids wanted to have a birthday party for him. It's in January in upstate New York. And I'm like, well, we can't hide stuff in his yard because they'll just see the tracks. So I'll just go buy a board game because there's a board game about everything. And there wasn't really anything out at that time. So we made one. Uh, he ends up going to a local board gaming convention. We run into some people and then start going into modern game design. Rent a desk at this entrepreneur think tank. Um, and at the time, I was asked, do you want to just make a game or do you want to start a company? And I said, let's start a company. And that was 2013. So I think about 13 titles later, here we are.
Wow. So you've been doing this for a little bit then, right? So
A little bit, yeah.
how many games do you think you've created or published, I guess, in that time?
I think it's 13. I'd have to go through them in my head, and we don't want to do that.
It's all good. But yeah, so coming out, so it sounds like roughly a game a year then, right? As far as
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
okay. And I bet there's a lot of people interested as far as like the creation kind of side of it too, because we enjoy playing the games, of course. Everybody loves playing the games, but then there's so much interest also on kind of the creative side as far as like, how do I make my own? Like whether it's yeah, and way into all sorts of ranges, right? From like trying to software develop your own video games to creating your own tabletop, games or doing your own like homebrew versions of like D&D and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So, tell us a little bit about like kind of your creative process and how do you go in about making a game?
Yeah, after we did the geocaching game, and then I was from being a counselor, I did psychological warfare, which was it's all based on actual psychological theory, but it's sarcastic and humorous. And I'm like, where am I ever going to get more ideas? And now we have like four things we're working on that aren't, they aren't out yet. So um, I just think like anything else, the more you do it, the more things come to you, the more you see. Um, so I think designers mainly function in two ways. Either they start with a mechanic and build a game around that. I tend to be the opposite, where I start around a theme and then build the game and have it line up with the theme as much as possible. And that, is like I can just every decision we make, I can bring back to what's the feel supposed to be like? What's the experience supposed to be like? So in Salem Affliction, Salem 1692, which is historically accurate game about the witch trials, it's, does this feel, the paranoia and the not being safe and the accusations and the fear, does everything kind of lead to that? And hopefully it does. I mean, that That one's had a lot of reviews out there about that one.
Gotcha.
Um,
I would assume that you'd want to do it that way, right? So that not having created, my own games, but just thematically, like every time when you're playing a game and you want to have, especially like I'm very partial to video games where when you can immerse yourself in the character and you actually kind of feel the struggle as the player just as much, or like try to echo that feeling of whatever the character is feeling, that seems so powerful, right? So like building around the theme seems like if I can get the players to feel what it is to be in this theme in this situation would, seems to me like the kind of better way to do it. And so it sounds like I said, what you're trying to do when you design games. So what is kind of the other side of that? Like I know you said you don't necessarily do it, but as far as designing around a mechanic,
yeah.
what is kind of the pros? We can maybe see some of the
Well,
cons there, but
yeah.
what are the pros? Yeah.
I do have one that it's called Madoshi, and it's a token swapping pattern matching game, and the board evolves as you play. And we kind of the game got developed and we sort of themed it around the five elements in Japanese lore, and there's yokai. And when we were developing it, there was a guy we met out in Grand Rapids, and he's like, "Well, it's a fun game, but it sort of feels like the theme is pasted on." And I'm like, "That's because the theme is pasted on." But it's really that one is really just kind of about the mechanic, about the pattern matching and outmaneuvering your opponent. So it's kind of a, for lack of a better expression, like a more complicated, not too much more complicated checkers type of thing.
Mm.
So there's no theme really in checkers, but it can be enjoyable. So some designers that function that way, uh, really need to come up with something neat and cool that hasn't been combined quite that way before. But the vast majority, I think, people want the story, people want the experience, people want to, there's not that, that game is enjoyable, but there's not too many times where you say, oh, and where you're talking about it afterwards, where I made this move and I won. That's as opposed to Gate Overlay, which is a social deduction game where the energy afterwards is, and I thought for sure, and they're and I have about 100 stories in that game about getting duped and things that have happened to me where I've been foolish. So
Yeah.
just different experience, really.
Oh, absolutely. Like that, it reminds me of I guess the other kind of games you play, like whether it's the social deduction games, right? The Mafia,
Mhm.
Werewolf, right? Those kind of ones where, yeah, those definitely have the kind of the story element, especially around it, like you said, after the fact, which I absolutely love too. Where I can't believe you did this, and like
Yeah.
you'll remember those kind of things. I absolutely agree with that.
And that happens in role playing games, a lot. And that's the beauty of those. And so I think those two things tend to be getting a little closer. Well, Gloomhaven certainly, crossed that barrier. And there's a lot of, so we have a time travel game that we're working on. And basically on the back of all the mission cards and the Atuli, who are the bad guys, when their orders cards come out on the back, there's a kind of a buried QR code. And if you want to scan that, it takes you to a web page with some graphics and audio that goes through the background of what the mission is and why that's happening. And it's like a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of people don't care about that and just want to play the game. So that's why it's kind of I'm pretty happy with that solution, because if you want to get deeper into it and play all that stuff and get that, you can do that. But if you just want to, get to playing the game, you can, here's the orders, we got to go do this thing. Sort of know why, but don't really know why. And
Right. That's what I completely understand that because I come from so I'm definitely one of the people where I'm somewhere in the middle where I'm like I want to have the fun story, but I'm not going to go look for all the deep lore. And,
right.
but I have one of my best friends is very much about all the world building and the lore, and so like when we're playing like whether we're playing like online games and stuff together, there will be these RPGs where, he will take a minute to be like, all right, we just found like a little book, right? And it's in the game, and it's only like 2 or 3 pages, yeah, at most. And I'm talking in game, right? So it's less than a real like typed up page of
Sure.
just words. But even I'm like, yeah, move on. I'm sure it's just an old dusty book. It has nothing important for us. And then
Right.
come to find out later, it's like, oh no, that was a kind of a hint, or it was like, oh, this is kind of the backstory of why this faction's at war with this faction, and now it's like, and he loves it, and it's like, yes, absolutely, more power to you. And I love that kind of flexibility where it's like, if you want the deep lore, you can go find it, but it doesn't prevent you from playing the game if you just want to jump in and whack goblins or something. So
Just make him the bard, and he can travel with you and tell you everything you need to know.
there you go, exactly right. Oh, so good. So thinking about kind of the tacked on approach versus like the thematic, I really like the kind of theming around that, and just because I think it is kind of in modern gaming too, where like, you know because you equated it to checkers, and I'm thinking also like something like chess, where it's like, all right, well, we have like old games, more of these like timeless games, but there's not really a theme to them. It's just like we enjoy playing them. But then it seems like in the modern gaming, it really is like what you're saying, like you have to have kind of a story, a narrative, a theme around it. Otherwise, it's just yet another game that nobody cares about. It's like, okay, well, what sets your game as a mechanic, just basic game, apart from like chess or checkers, right? Is that what the kind of the problem is? Is like you're more forgettable in that way, and we're
Well, I would say the vast majority is the story driven, but there's and I'm going to say the name wrong, like Ami Tomo, which is purely I think it's essentially chess with four pieces. You have three pawns and a king, and you have three cards which you can select how you move those pieces. And they rotate through without getting to explain the whole game. But so there are some very successful abstract games. But the 80%, 90% are theme driven, experience driven. And the ones that do it really well are the ones that stand out. And I just played it's called Moon Colony Bloodbath.
yeah.
And so it has a unique mechanic, but all of it makes sense and ties in to the story. And basically, there's a deck in the middle of the board that so basically a work card comes out and you can choose what to do. And you're trying to increase your population, but then a robot card comes out and it's like, well, they do menial tasks, and I'm sure they would never turn on us and cause us any harm. And so
Yeah.
a robot card comes out and, four of your population die. And so basically it's a deck builder, but it's the center deck.
Mm.
So it progressively gets bloodbath. It progressively gets more destructive, and the first person to lose all their people ends the game. And so the effect of that is you're kind of building up your colony, but then it's getting torn down. Um, and the end game scoring is super easy because so many people then killed off. You're adding up your population. Final score is like 7-5 but so it's mechanically interesting, different. You want to play it again, but it all kind of fit in terms of this. The moon colony isn't going to go well at the end, but it fits. So yeah, I mean, I think so if you can do both of those things, I think that really is what attracts people. But that question of what makes this game different is a key question. And so, like I mentioned, Affliction about the Salem witch trials, virtually every game about Salem, you're looking for witches. And there was one game, I think it's disappeared now, but the tagline was, "You play the good guys hanging witches." And I'm like, oh my God, that's so not what happened. And it actually motivated me to do the historical one. And that's been kind of an evergreen, pretty good seller. I mean, it came out in 2017, and we still, I think we're on the fifth print run of that one. So It's in a few museums out in the Boston area. But it's an easy answer to the question. What sets that apart? It's a historically accurate game about the Salem witch trials. The people in it are people that are all involved in the witch trials. And so that's a question that's hard to answer when there's about 600 games every month or so coming out. And
Yeah.
it's pretty easy to self-publish something on, a game craft or a print and play. So selling a game, that's a whole other issue.
Right, and we can certainly talk about that. But as far as I would make sure to wrap up kind of the creative process,
Yes, yes.
uh, because what you're mentioning, right, is so having anything. So yes, if you could do both, if you could have like a unique game mechanic that you can build, but if you can also build around a theme, especially if it's something you can differentiate yourself from everybody out there, right? Like how are you different? So how do you stand out? I think it's definitely huge. Uh, the other thing that I noticed when people are trying to get started is, sometimes it's just I'll call it fear or just anxiety. That's just like, I don't know where to start. Like it's so overwhelming. How do I even begin?
Yeah.
And or the same kind of fear of, you know, whatever I make, it's going to be crap, right? Like it's going to take me forever to make this thing, and it's going to be terrible. Like, why should I even start? Like, what's kind of the advice we'd have for maybe like a brand new, tabletop game creator that's like just overwhelmed, don't know where to start.
Yeah, well, I still think that once in a while. Like, this thing's going to be crap. Who's going to want to play this? Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's the challenge. I think there's two challenges is that beginning part. And it's just like writing, just do it. Just start writing. Just, write, and then edit, and eventually you'll get there. And so write on 3x5 cards and try it with friends. And that's the beginning part is you just I remember driving back from Harrisburg at 2 in the morning, and I had this great idea for a card game called Murder, and you're swapping cards around trying to find the murderer. And so I'm like, I'm all excited, this is going to be great. And I just write out some stuff on some cards, I take it to a group, and it was horrible. We just quietly pass the cards around. And so you got to go out and try it, and then
Yeah.
once the tail end is the other challenge. So once you play it with friends, then you obviously want to play it with people that aren't your friends, that with people that and this is where the game design community is pretty cool. That we kind of see it for the most part as the rising tide floats all boats, or whatever that saying is.
Yep.
And
Yeah, you go.
a lot of rising tide. Anyway, a lot of other designers are happy to sit down and play your games. And what's great about them is they aren't. It's not that they're rude, but they're direct. Because I'd rather have you tell me something's terrible than have 2,000 people tell me something's terrible, or that they
Right.
don't like something, or it could be done better. And so I don't remember what designer said this, but it is true. The last 10% of the game design is about 90% of the work. And that
Wow.
I think is where a lot of people get caught too, because I have played Affliction, no kidding, probably 1,800 times. And now it's been because I've been playing it at conventions and stuff.
Right.
Not before it came out, I've been playing 1,800 times. But imagine playing the same game over and over and over. And bless my play testers, I don't understand it, but they come back and they're happy to do it. We meet once a week, and whatever we're working on. And sometimes it's doesn't, I make a change and it's terrible, but that's what you need to know before you publish it out.
Yeah, and it's
So,
great. I'll just a point. It's great that there are people like that there that are willing
oh
to
yeah,
help, that are willing to go through multiple times to go through the game, because there's definitely people out there like me that like a wide variety of games. Like playing the same game 1,800 times sounds like, man, that's that's a lot. I don't know if I
it's
could handle
pretty
it.
good. Yeah, one of my play testers, purchased a copy of the game that he worked on, and he's got it on his shelf. And a friend came over and he's like, "Well, it's in the shrink wrap. Haven't you played that? How come you haven't played that game?" He's like, "I played that game
Well, I've played
a
it.
lot." So, you know, I, to the beginning part is you just gotta. you just do it, and you get better the more you do it. Then the hard part after you do that first thing and you take it and play it with people is to just listen to everything that's being said, uh, without being defensive, on your design, that because you worked hard on this thing and somebody's like, well, I didn't really like that. And instead of explaining, why it is, I typically don't do that. Although sometimes if it's a later stage in development, say, well, we did try that and this is what happened. But, I take it all in, and then it's up to me that does it match the vision of what we're trying to do with this game or not. And, sorry about my phone dinging away,
No.
uh, down there. So
Yeah, I
that,
guess
I think those are the key pieces. But
yeah, and I think the key, the two keys that I heard there, absolutely phenomenal, is just basically just start, just take the action, because
mhm.
there's this thought that like I need to be perfect, which is not true. That never anything that you've ever tried in your life, right? You've never been
Mhm.
perfect the first time you've done it, right? There's so many people that are like, man, if I don't get this right, I'm just done. It's like, no, it starts even like when we're young, right? You have to crawl before you walk, as they say,
Yeah.
right? So so it took you a few times to figure that out. Your parents didn't be like, hey, you tried to stand up like 3 or 4 times, like you're never going to be a walker. Stop. You don't stop. You keep trying until you get there. And it's just interesting that once we get into, further in life that we're just suddenly like, oh no, society's going to look at me bad because, I failed the very first time I tried something. It's like that's not even true. So just starting and by the way, accepting that, right? Like accepting that, it's going to take some trial and error, right? It's going to
Mhm.
take some failures, right? So and failure is okay. I think that's where we've gotten kind of skewed, I think, in society. And I think gamers kind of have a leg up there to say failure is okay. It's like, yeah, we've played enough games to know that you're going to fail, you're going to lose, you're going to, game over, restart, reload, whatever. We don't care. That's just part of the game. Just keep
Yeah,
going, keep playing,
there
right?
was a designer that I latch onto this who said that the playing a game well and designing the game are two separate skill sets. Because I typically lose when I'm playing games, so I'm hanging on to that one. Because, yeah, the other piece at the end that can be a problem is that perfection thing. I need to get this game perfect. I need to get it perfect. You do want to do that due diligence and get the game the best you can. But at some point, pulling the trigger can be the opposite end of the problems. I need to get work on it, keep working on it, keep working on it. And I kind of know a game is done when there's nothing, when it has that experience and I've done all that stuff, but when there's nothing left to take away. So I'm trying to, because I tend to build up stuff and then I'm like, okay, what can we take away? What's the core fun of this experience? And with this, no one's using this card, for example. So clearly it's not getting used. It doesn't have a value in that game. Um, or either get rid of it or change how it works or something. But yeah, you just keep tinkering, and there's plenty of places at game stores you can go to, and people are always interested in trying this stuff, or Crotaspiel or
Yeah.
unpub events. So they're all over the place.
Yeah, it reminds me the taking away. That's such a great piece of advice because that's something that popped in my head is if you've heard the what is it from Mark Twain is the letter. If I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter
I
is the phrase.
hadn't heard that one. That's good.
Yeah, and it was just like it makes so much sense because it's like you want to yeah, it's easy to just kind of add filler if you put it that way. Is say it's easy to overcomplicate or add filler because it's
Mhm.
adding is simple, but it's the art of taking away the things that that unnecessarily complicate or don't add value or even detract from what your game, experience needs or wants to be, right? And so I love that when there's nothing left to cut, that's when you know you've got it.
Yeah.
Like that's fantastic. And to go back to the earlier point, I want to make sure we didn't miss as far as one of the main keys was really the play testing and kind of listening to feedback, right? Because this is something I think that happens not only in game design, but just kind of anywhere in life, like especially like just marketing, right? If you're trying to run your own business. I've heard this in marketing plenty of times too, and I've been doing that, simply listening to the customers, right? To potential customers, to just kind of the market and what they want, right? Because so many people, I think, try to also create in a vacuum, right? Because
Hmm.
they're just like, I'm going to create my thing and it's going to be the best thing ever. And then once, I think, like you said in your example, right? And once you take it to somebody, it's like, oh, now I can, somebody kind of reflects back and it'd be like, oh, these are the flaws I didn't think about because of this and this. And so having that experience with other people and listening to the feedback is just so powerful. So I just want to make sure to echo that point again, just to say, iterate, get better, change, but listen to feedback and improve based on that feedback, I think is huge.
Yeah, and you can, there's more subtle ways of getting feedback too. So if you're going to a larger convention where they have events that you set up, so, we'll do Gen Con and Origins and set up a series of events that people can sign up for. Typically they fill up, but Madoshi, when we first came out with it, was called Yokai Hunters, and it would just not get signups. And I think they thought it was like Yokai Watch or something, not what it was, but there was clearly a miss in the title or something, and or maybe in a different instance, maybe the game doesn't sound appealing to people. And so you look at what, are people signing up? Are people interested in this? And you'd think there'd be enough zombie games and Cthulhu games, but people keep signing up for those. So it's kind of
Yeah.
funny.
Because I guess it's more
I
clear what
forgot pirate too.
and pirate, right? So if they're like, hey, I like this theme, I know what this theme is, great, let's go with that. So no, that's funny because like if you start pulling in from different, genres or IPs, where you're like, oh, it's yokai, and then yeah, I could see that as far
you
as
know,
like, oh, no, I'm not gonna play yokai, watch the board game. That doesn't make sense.
right. So I had to be open to, well, let's change the name, and we had a card game earlier called Flip the Bird, and it really didn't line up with what the game was. We were cats in the backyard trying to catch, eat, steal birds. And eventually I tried to be as silly as possible. And so the name of that game ended up being Cats, a Sad But Necessary Cycle of Violent Predatory Behavior, because it was like the longest title we could think of. And it was kind of, and it matched, you were the cats, and it matched the humor in the game. That one's out of print right now, anyway.
No.
So there is like naming the game is eventually important. It doesn't have to be great at the beginning that you have a cool name, but you might. Artwork, uh, early on, especially when you're doing it with friends, don't get all hung up on the artwork. It's easy enough to pull off clip art or use AI art in terms of developing. And if you want to, like when we go to conventions, we want to test out the graphic design. Is it communicating information properly? And we'll have placeholder art in there to help people get the feel of it. But that's a little later on. You don't necessarily need to have that, right? Spending all your time working on art that you may never use because,
Yeah.
or design that you may never use because, oh, we changed how the game works and that's no longer applies.
Yeah. So really, it's really knowing what's kind of locked in and to the point where like where you can invest or
Yeah.
spend more time to make those assets because at some point, yeah, if it's not locked down and you're just like, I'm just making art to make it, it's like, well, kind of wasting
Yeah.
wasting some effort or wasting some time or money, depending on what you're doing with it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
totally.
mostly for us, I think it's less the art and more the graphic design. Because is it communicating uh, things the way you want to make it easy to play the game and get all the information you need without getting lost in the card design or whatever, the board design.
Gotcha. Fantastic. And gosh, I know we could talk about this for hours, but and I want to make sure to be respectful of time. So as we wind down this particular episode for Game Your Future, so focused all about creation and board games, is there anything in the creation process that you think we've missed that you want to make sure to touch on if anybody's looking to, make their own tabletop games?
I think those are the big things. Just start, uh, just try it out, go back and change iterations, be open to feedback and criticism, get it to get it to a point where you're happy with the experience people are having and realize that there's things you wish you could have done differently a year later. But if you don't publish, then it's never gonna be seen.
Perfect. And gosh, this has been so much fun. So Daniel, and where can we find out more about you and your games?
Well, dphgames.com, dog, dog Peter Howitzer, or whatever, dphgames.com. Um, we do have distribution and wholesale, so we might be in your local game store, but we're pretty small, so not necessarily. And but I think Affliction is probably the one that you could find most likely out there somewhere that one's been around for a while. And all our products are listed on our website.
Fantastic. Got so much fun. And guys, if you enjoyed having Daniel on the podcast and you want to learn more, especially if you want to learn more on the sales side, because we didn't even have a chance to get to that, and maybe that could be a future episode if we want to have
Sure.
Daniel back. So guys, let me know in the comments if that's something that you want to see, if it's something you want to hear. Because Dan, it's been so much fun talking about the creative process for the board game. So fantastic stuff.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to mention is the latest game out because I was jokingly talking about pirates
Aha.
is our game Legacy at Sea, which is
Legacy at Sea. And that's available on
historical.
DPH Games.
Yeah, yeah. It's historical fiction, but no
Ah,
cracking, just actual pirates. But
there you go. So guys, we'll have the link for you guys in the description as well. DPH Games, dphgames.com, right?
yes, yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, gosh, before you go, just have one final question for you. And so I know you also enjoy video games, right?
Hmm.
So tell me, what is your favorite video game?
Hmm. You know, maybe an oldie but a goodie is Diablo.
Diablo 1.
Well, all
Okay.
of them.
All of them. Okay. The Diablo franchise. I like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, I like going co-op with other players through things, and prior to that, years ago was Gauntlet.
Yes, I remember
Remember that
that one
one?
too. Yeah.
Valkyrie needs food. So I do really enjoy the co-op aspects of gaming. Ghost Recon, because again, the same thing, you could plan, and not so much into Halo where you just run around and throw sticky grenades on my back and stuff, but the planning and the strategizing part.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was more
Uh,
than one game I gave you, but
so no, I like Diablo franchise, and especially yeah, I'm a huge fan of co-op kind of games too. So absolutely love that answer. And because I know you're more of a tabletop guy, I did want to have the bonus question for you too is okay, so what is your favorite board game?
well, I snuck
Tabletop
that one in right at the beginning, which was Diplomacy,
diplomacy. Yep.
which was designed in 1959 of all things. It's
Wow.
brown, but it's very basic concepts, but it's all about the interaction and negotiation, and there's no dice.
There you go. So fantastic. Well, thank you for that, Daniel. This has been so much fun, and thank you for being a part of this.
Sure.
And guys, if you want to learn more about Daniel and his games, dphgames.com.
Mhm.
And if you want to learn more about how you can use your gaming knowledge, your gaming skills to really help level up your own skills, your own life, definitely check out some of my work at dragonmorexp.com. Start your journey with me there today. So, guys, this has been fantastic. Daniel, thank you again for being on this podcast. This has been so much fun.
Thanks for having me. Had fun too.
Yep, absolutely. So, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.